Section 6 of Reclaiming Revolution. History, Summation, and Lessons from the Work of Storm, Standing Together to Organize a Revolutionary Movement. This recording is in the public domain. Recorded by the Progressing America Project. Reclaiming Revolution, Section 6, 1998, Re-emergence. Though the organization had frozen all external work in the fall of 1995, Storm members continued to engage in movement work. But we did so as individuals, not as representatives of Storm. Members were still involved in labor organizing, youth and student organizing, and community organizing work. Drawing on their newfound political clarity, Storm members were playing increasingly visible leadership roles in these movements. The people in Storm at this point would be seen as the group's primary public face for most of its remaining years. Members continue to build important organizations. Storm members were building organizations that were growing and becoming important forces in the movement in their own right. Storm never organizationally directed or intervened in the work of these organizations. But, because Storm members founded and led them, they came to be seen as Storm affiliated. Furthermore, these projects promoted politics quite similar to, indeed at times indistinguishable from, Storm's. For example, Bay Area Police Watch was expanding to become the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, EBC. EBC would go on to sponsor some of the Bay Area's most important projects fighting against state repression. As San Francisco was forcing its general assistance recipients into the forced labor of workfare, the General Assistance Rights Union was evolving into Power. People organized to win employment rights. A union of no and low-wage workers in San Francisco, Power was now organizing its members as workers instead of as public assistance recipients. Soul began as a summer organizing training program for college student activists. Now it was growing into a year-round training center for the Bay Area youth and student movement. And it was beginning to create a space for young revolutionaries to come together to study and develop a shared vision. Stepping out again, Storm re-emerges. As rectification wrapped up in the fall of 1997, the group decided to re-engage in collective, organizational work. It was time to move beyond our work as individual revolutionaries. We decided that our first project would be to support the affirmative action student movement at UC Berkeley. One Storm member was already actively involved in this struggle as a student activist. As an organization, Storm began to provide political education and organizing training to student organizers. All members recognized that working with student activists at UC Berkeley, UCB, didn't reflect our commitment to building power in working-class communities of color. But we also knew that we didn't yet have the capacity to organize in these communities. We debated whether or not working on UCB's campus was a sound step strategically. Several members feared that student work would push us in an irreversibly petty bourgeoisie, that is, middle class, direction because of the elite nature of this campus. Other members were concerned that we might get too comfortable doing student and youth work and never transition to organizing in working class communities. In the end, we decided to support this student movement, because it was a familiar area where we had close ties with key leaders, and because it was a low-risk place to get our feet wet. Knowing that many of the student leaders shared our commitment to third world revolutionary politics and the leadership of women of color, we also hoped to recruit new members, giving us the resources to begin organizing with working class people. Storm's first core and first general membership. We got to know a number of student leaders at this time. We invited 7 of them to join Storm. All were leading members of the Student of Color Solidarity Council, a coalition of student of color organizations on campus. They joined Storm as general members. The 7 members who had been in the organization during the rectification became Storm's first core. Storm now had 14 members, 7 core members, and 7 general members. Most of these new members were in their last year of school, and the time-strapped Storm members were hopeful that they would make Storm work their main political priority after graduation. After graduation, these members went on to work with many different organizations, including Power, Soul, St. Peter's Housing Committee, and the Coalition on Homelessness. One became a teacher in Oakland's public school system. Continuing to learn. Storm continued its political development through study, particularly of the Third World Communist tradition. In January 1998, we studied No Fist is Big Enough to Hide the Sky, a history of the national liberation movement in Guinea-Bissau. This study proved a big influence on Storm's politics. We were impressed by the work of Amilcar Cabral and the African Party of Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, PAIGC. These African revolutionaries emphasized democracy, cultural work, class suicide, see footnote, and the importance of being rooted in oppressed communities. Begin footnote. The concept that middle-class revolutionaries should discard their class status and immerse themselves in working-class communities. End footnote. In July 1998, 3 core members went to South Africa to attend the Congress of the South African Communist Party, SACP. The Congress was crucial in solidifying these 3 members' commitment to Third World Marxist politics. At the Congress, they saw hundreds of working-class Africans who proudly called themselves Marxists and who were deeply engaged in serious political struggle. We saw how powerful Marxism has been and can be for liberation movements made up of and led by people of color. This was in stark contrast to the experience of most members prior to the Congress, who had encountered only white Marxists in the U.S., opportunistically selling newspapers at the events that we had worked to organize. When the 3 core members came back, they were ready to help Storm deepen its red politics and to promote those politics throughout the movement. Rewriting the points of unity and Constitution. With a growing membership and a growing commitment to Marxist politics, Storm began rewriting our points of unity and Constitution. The resulting document signaled a clear commitment to communist politics, drawing primarily from the traditions of Third World Marxism. Our new points of unity represented an unorthodox and somewhat eclectic form of Marxism. We drew on the strengths of the communist tradition while challenging it to place a greater priority on gender, race, democracy, and mass organizing. Specifically, we upheld revolutionary democracy, revolutionary feminism, revolutionary internationalism, the central role of the working class, urban Marxism, and Third World Communism. The new points of unity highlighted what we considered to be the 3 main tasks facing revolutionaries in this period. First, building an advance guard organization. Second, promoting revolutionary ideas. And third, building revolutionary people's power. See Storm's Politics for more information. Our new constitution maintained many features of the first, but also contained some substantial changes. We still had a closed membership, race and gender quotas for new classes, the mediation team, and consensus-based decision-making. But we also codified the core general membership structure, a radical departure from Storm's original design as a flat revolutionary collective, with no defined political leadership body. The new structure created a Marxist-committed core within a broadly revolutionary general membership. We did this to maintain the centrality and leadership of revolutionary Marxism, while making a space for revolutionaries of all stripes to join and participate in Storm's general membership. Using this 2-tiered structure, Storm developed its first clear division of labor and decision-making power. We assigned responsibility for decisions related to our line, that is, our analysis, to the core. The general membership had responsibility for decisions related to our program, that is, our practical work. At this point, we also created a coordinating committee, CC, to handle Storm's administrative needs. The 4 members of the CC were selected from and by the core. Along with the CC, we established 411, an ongoing committee in charge of political education for the group. 411 contained both core members and general members. See Storm Structure for more detailed information. Storm's new work groups. After adopting our new constitution and points of unity, Storm was poised to end our long absence from serious mass work. Instead of deciding on one project, we decided to initiate 4 work groups that reflected the sectors of movement work in which Storm members were already active. 1. Revolutionary Youth Movement, RYM, pronounced like rhyme. 2. Workers Organized to Rid Us of Capitalism, WORC. 3. Culture and propaganda. 4. Theory development. We designed these workgroups to give members a space to discuss how we were carrying out the group's general strategy of, quote, promoting revolutionary ideas, end quote, and, quote, building revolutionary people's power, end quote. See the workgroup discussions for a narrative on STORM's external work in these areas. The beginnings of a national network. The Critical Resistance (CR) conference in 1998 provided an important moment in STORM's development. At the conference, STORM met many of our political peers from across the country. We met comrades from the Student Liberation Action Movement, SLAM, in New York City, and young revolutionaries from Boston and Chicago. Meeting other people like us alleviated our feelings of isolation. We began to understand ourselves as part of a developing national political trend of young revolutionary internationalists. Growing pains. Though that was an exciting time, it also gave rise to one of our biggest challenges. After years of fruitful collaboration, rifts began to develop between STORM and OLIN, a local Chicano student organization and one of our strongest allies. For several years, STORM had supported OLIN's work. STORM members had long-standing relationships with OLIN's leadership. But with our growing membership and new workgroup structure, STORM was now becoming an independent force in the youth and student movement. A change in our relationship with OLIN, which had been one primarily of support, was inevitable. Unfortunately, that change was a heightened level of conflict, not of increased unity. In 1998, OLIN asked STORM to support its Schools Not Jails walkout, scheduled for 2 days after the CR conference. They asked us to help with strategic planning and security training, and to serve as security during the walkout. In a subsequent fundraising letter, Critical Resistance took credit for the walkout. With 2 STORM members on CR's steering committee, OLIN blamed STORM, although those 2 members had objected to the letter. CR's Youth Task Force, in which STORM members were also involved, later used pictures from the event in a flyer calling for national walkouts, escalating the conflict. All of this soured STORM's relationship with OLIN. We tried to meet with OLIN to resolve these tensions, but resolving conflict was not one of our strong suits. Both organizations made mistakes in these meetings. The meetings didn't diffuse the conflict, they escalated it. Eventually, both organizations decided to take a cooling-off period. We just wouldn't interact with each other. The fallout would follow STORM for the rest of our organizational history. End of section 6.